She said, "I ain't pretty, but I can cook." The giant rancher replied, "That's enough for me." The ranch stretched for miles, a patchwork of fences, corrals, and barns built from a mix of local stone and reinforced metal. It was a planet where survival was hard, but the rewards were greater than most had ever dreamed. In the quiet morning, a small shuttle descended from the sky, kicking up clouds of red dust. Inside the shuttle, Mara adjusted her satchel and took a deep breath. She had traveled across 3 star systems to reach this place. Torian 9 was known for its giant alien species, its tough terrain, and its dangerous wildlife. Mara, being human, was considered small and fragile here. But she had something the aliens could not replicate: knowledge, creativity, and the ability to cook meals that could make a difference, even in survival situations. She stepped out of the shuttle, feeling the gravity of the planet settle around her. Torian 9 air was thin, and the smell of dry grass and metal hung in the wind. She looked up at the sprawling ranch, at the enormous fences and the alien creatures roaming freely, and swallowed her nerves. Humans were rare on this planet. Most of the inhabitants were giant, muscular aliens with tough scales and even tougher tempers. A single human in this place often drew stares, curiosity, or outright suspicion. Mara tugged at the strap of her satchel and whispered to herself, "I ain't pretty, but I can cook." She wasn't sure why she said it aloud, but it felt like a shield, a reminder that her value did not lie in appearances. Her hands were steady, her mind sharp, and she carried years of culinary knowledge that might just make her useful in this alien world. At the gate, a shadow moved. Korak, the rancher, emerged. He was a towering figure, easily 3 times Mara's height, with broad shoulders and thick scales that glinted in the sunlight. His eyes, a deep amber, scanned the human carefully. He had seen many beings come and go, but something about this tiny human intrigued him. She didn't cower or beg like others did. She stood tall even if her posture was cautious. "You're the cook," Korak's voice rumbled like distant thunder. Mara nodded. "Yes, sir, Mara Callan, I hear your herd needs attention." Korak studied her for a long moment. Humans were clever, yes, but fragile. Mara looked weak beside him. Still, there was determination in her gaze. That was worth something. He grunted and stepped aside. "Then come in. Don't touch anything yet." Mara followed him, carefully avoiding the giant hooves of grazing skybeasts. The creatures were massive, covered in thick fur and plated armor, with long horns curling over their heads. Their eyes were intelligent, almost knowing. Mara's stomach tightened with both fear and excitement. She had never seen such animals in real life. She had studied their biology, but seeing them in the flesh was different. Korak led her through the ranch. Everywhere she looked, there were signs of labor: massive feeders being filled by machinery, fences built to withstand trampling, and barns large enough to house dozens of skybeasts at once. Aliens moved efficiently, their large hands handling tasks that would have required machinery on Earth. Mara felt small, almost invisible. "You'll work in the kitchens," Korak said finally. "The creatures need feeding, the ranch hands need feeding, and if you can make both happen, you'll earn your keep." Mara nodded. "I can do that." Korak grunted again and left her in the kitchen. It was enormous, easily 10 times the size of any human kitchen she had worked in, with pots the size of small barrels and stoves that glowed hotter than anything on Earth. The challenge made her pulse race with excitement. This was bigger than anything she had faced before. She unpacked her supplies, laying out tools she had brought from Earth. Her knives were small compared to the equipment around her, but she trusted them. Mara started by examining the ingredients: dried grains, alien vegetables, and proteins from both the skybeasts and other local creatures. It was different from anything she had cooked before, but she thrived on challenges. As she worked, she couldn't help but observe the aliens in the yard. They were strong, intimidating, and clearly capable of handling any threat, except perhaps the subtle art of flavor. Mara smiled to herself. If she could teach them that, she would prove her worth. Hours passed quickly. Mara experimented with flavors and textures, carefully balancing nutrients for both humans and aliens. She created a stew that smelled hearty and satisfying, with hints of spices she had discovered in local markets. When Korek returned, the aroma hit him first. He paused, sniffing the air like a predator tracking its prey, or perhaps like a giant realizing something unexpected. "What's that?" he asked, his eyes narrowing. Mara smiled. "A starter. I thought it might help the skybeasts and your workers regain energy. It's simple, but effective." Korek raised an eyebrow but allowed her to serve it. He watched as the ranch hands tried it, eyes widening at the taste. Even the more skeptical aliens murmured appreciatively. Korek tasted it himself, taking a careful spoonful. His face betrayed no emotion at first, but then a slow nod came. "Not bad," he said simply. Mara felt a small thrill of satisfaction. Not badly from him, that was high praise. The day continued, and Mara moved from kitchen to corral, from preparation to tasting, slowly earning the trust of the ranch hands. Some aliens still eyed her with suspicion, whispering about humans being weak or fragile. Mara ignored them, focusing on the task. With each dish, each careful adjustment to the food, she demonstrated skill that words alone could not convey. As evening approached, Mara stepped outside to watch the twin suns set. The sky turned orange and red, and the shadow of the massive ranch stretched across the plains. She felt a small thrill of accomplishment. She had survived the first day. She had made her mark not with strength but with her mind and her hands. Korek approached, his massive form casting a shadow over her. "You're different," he said, his voice quieter now. Mara looked up, surprised. "I know I'm small," she said honestly. "I'm not built like you or the others, but I can cook, I can help, and I can learn fast." Korek considered this, then nodded. "That's enough for me." Mara blinked, unsure if she heard correctly. But she felt a warmth she had not felt in a long time. Respect, trust, perhaps even partnership. The night fell and the ranch quieted. Mara sat outside her small quarters, listening to the distant calls of the skybeasts. She realized that Torian 9 was no longer just a place of work. It was a challenge, an opportunity, and perhaps the beginning of something greater. Somewhere inside her, a thought took hold. Humans were small. Humans were fragile. But humans could also be clever, resourceful, and indispensable. And Mara intended to prove it, one meal at a time. The morning on Torian 9 arrived slowly, with a soft orange glow spilling across the ranch. The twin suns climbed over the horizon, and the skybeasts moved in slow, graceful arcs across the fields. Mara woke early, as usual, her mind already buzzing with ideas for the day's work. Cooking here was more than just preparing meals. It was survival, both for the ranchers and for the animals that made the ranch thrive. Korek had assigned her a list the night before, simple in words but complex in action. Feed the skybeasts, prepare meals for the ranch hands, and make sure everything was balanced, nutritious, and satisfying. Simple on paper, but in reality, Mara knew every ingredient mattered. One wrong choice could make a meal inedible, or worse, dangerous. She gathered her tools and stepped into the kitchen, which still smelled faintly of yesterday's stew. Mara smiled. Cooking for these giants was an entirely different game. The stoves were enormous, the pots were barrels, and even the utensils were massive. But Mara had learned quickly. It was a test of adaptation, and humans were experts at adapting. As she started mixing grains with alien vegetables, she noticed a commotion outside. A group of ranch hands gathered near the largest corral, speaking in low, urgent voices. Mara wiped her hands on her apron and stepped outside. The skybeasts in the corral were restless. Their heads swung side to side, hooves stamping, breaths heavy in the morning air. Korek arrived, his massive footsteps thudding against the ground. "What's going on?" Mara asked. Korek frowned. "The herd is weak. Some of them are not eating properly. We don't know why. Our usual feed isn't enough." Mara frowned too. She had studied skybeast biology before coming here. Their digestive systems were complex, and they needed nutrients in very specific ratios. Humans had never raised them in numbers, but maybe she could figure it out. "I can help," she said. "I'll prepare something special. If you let me, I think I can get them to eat and regain strength." Korek raised an eyebrow. "You're a cook, human, not a vet. Do you really think you can handle this?" "I can try," Mara replied simply. "And if it doesn't work, at least I'll learn." Korek studied her, his expression unreadable. After a long pause, he nodded. "All right, you have the corral. Do not make mistakes." Mara went to work. First, she observed the skybeasts carefully. They were enormous, with long horns and thick, armored fur. Some had dull eyes and moved sluggishly, clearly weak. Others paced nervously, refusing to eat. She could see subtle differences in behavior, signs that the other ranchers missed. Her small human eyes picked up patterns that giants overlooked. She began preparing a new feed mixture, combining grains, proteins, and alien vegetables. But she added something different, a special blend of herbs that could stimulate appetite and calm nerves. It was a simple trick, but it relied on observation, timing, and careful measurement. Mara worked carefully, mixing enormous quantities while keeping the ratios precise. Korek watched silently from the edge of the corral. Mara's hands moved quickly, small but precise, as if she was conducting a symphony. For the first time, he noticed something remarkable. Humans were not strong like his people, but they had patience, focus, and creativity, traits that giants often lacked. Hours passed and the first batch was ready. Mara carried the large feed trough to the corral, her small frame dwarfed by the massive skybeasts leaning over the rails. She spoke softly, encouraging them, and to her surprise they approached. Slowly at first, then with more confidence they began to eat. Korak's amber eyes widened. "They're eating and they seem calmer," he said. He took a step closer, observing. "I didn't think a human could do this." Mara smiled quietly. "Sometimes you have to try different approaches. Strength alone doesn't work with every creature." For the rest of the day, Mara rotated batches of feed, adjusting flavors and ingredients. She experimented with warmth, texture, and scent, noticing which combinations made the skybeasts more willing to eat. Some animals responded to a subtle mix of grains and ground nuts. Others preferred a puree of local vegetables with a hint of sweet nectar. Mara's attention to detail made a difference. The ranch hands, who had been skeptical of her at first, began to watch with respect. They whispered to each other, noting how the tiny humans seemed to understand creatures that the massive aliens could not control. Mara did not mind the attention. She focused on her work, noting patterns, taking mental notes, and adjusting each batch. By the afternoon, the herd showed signs of improvement. Their movements were steadier, their eyes brighter, and they seemed less restless. Mara wiped sweat from her forehead and allowed herself a small smile. She had made a difference. Korek approached again, this time more thoughtfully. "I have to admit I underestimated you. You're small, fragile, but you see things others miss. That's impressive." Mara shrugged. "I've learned that patience and observation are sometimes stronger than size and strength." Korek nodded slowly. He seemed to respect her now, though he did not show it in words. Mara understood. Respect here was earned through action, not charm. Later, as Mara returned to the kitchen, she found her next challenge waiting. The ranch hands were gathering for their evening meal, expecting the same efficiency and flavor she had promised. Mara glanced at the giant pots and ingredients, then to the exhausted workers. She had to create meals that were hearty, nutritious, and satisfying while keeping them balanced for energy. She began chopping vegetables, mixing grains, and seasoning meat. Her hands moved quickly, a blur of motion. She worked through the evening, tasting, adjusting, and testing. The kitchen smelled like home to her, even in this alien world. Cooking was her way of connecting with others, of showing care without needing words. When the meal was ready, the ranch hands gathered around. Mara served carefully, ensuring each plate had enough nutrients to sustain them through the night. They ate eagerly, their initial skepticism giving way to appreciation. Some even smiled at her, a rare sight among these giants. Korek observed from a distance, his massive arms crossed. He noticed how Mara worked, how she interacted with the workers and the skybeasts. He began to see humans in a new light, not just fragile but clever, patient, and indispensable in ways his people could not fully understand. After the meal, Mara cleaned the kitchen and took a moment to sit outside. The twin suns were low, casting long shadows across the ranch. The skybeasts moved slowly in the corral, calmer than they had been in days. Mara felt a sense of satisfaction unlike anything she had experienced before. Korek approached again, this time sitting beside her, his massive form dwarfing hers. "You've done well today," he said quietly. "More than I expected," Mara smiled. "Thank you, I'm learning. The herd, the ranch, it's all different from what I imagined, but I like it." Korek chuckled softly, a low, rumbling sound. "Humans are interesting. Small, fragile, but clever. I didn't expect a tiny cook to teach me anything about running a ranch." Mara laughed. "Maybe you just needed to watch closely. Sometimes the smallest hands can make the biggest difference." The night settled over Torian 9, cool and quiet. Mara lay on her small cot in her quarters, thinking about the day. She had faced giants, managed an enormous herd, and earned a small measure of respect. She knew tomorrow would bring new challenges, more feed to prepare, more skybeasts to care for, and new obstacles she could not yet imagine. But Mara felt ready. She understood something important. Humans might be small, but ingenuity, patience, and determination could make them indispensable. In a world of giants, that was a kind of power all its own. She drifted to sleep with the distant calls of skybeasts echoing through the night, her mind filled with plans, recipes, and strategies for the days to come. Tomorrow would be harder. But Mara had proven something to herself and to the ranch. Strength was not always measured in size, and courage was not always measured in battle. Sometimes the courage to try and the patience to observe was enough to change the world. The morning dawned quietly over Torian 9, but the ranch was far from calm. Mara rose early, as she had every day since arriving, her mind already filled with ideas for the skybeasts and the humans she had begun to care for. The herd was showing signs of improvement, but some of the animals were still weak, their movements sluggish and uncertain. Mara knew that small improvements would not be enough. She needed a breakthrough. Korek appeared at the kitchen doorway, his massive silhouette framed by the rising suns. "Morning, human," he rumbled, his voice carrying across the kitchen. "I hear some of the herd is still struggling." "Yes, sir," Mara replied, wiping her hands on her apron. "I think I can fix it. I just need more time and a few new ingredients." Korek's eyes narrowed in thought. "Time is something we do not have. The herd's condition affects the ranch. If they do not recover soon, we lose more than just pride." Mara nodded. She understood the stakes. This ranch was not just a home for creatures. It was a livelihood for everyone who lived here. She had to succeed. "I can do it," she said simply. "Just let me try." Korek studied her for a moment, then grunted. "All right, but if this fails, you'll need to find another way to help. I'm watching every move." Mara smiled faintly. She did not need his approval to do her best. She needed only the opportunity. She began her preparations immediately. Today, she would try something new, a mixture designed not just to feed but to strengthen. Mara worked methodically, blending grains, proteins, and alien vegetables with care. She added a touch of local herbs known to stimulate appetite and improve digestion, along with a secret technique she had developed from her studies of Earth's nutrients. The mixture was enormous. Mara poured it into barrels, adjusted the consistency, and carried it to the corral. Her small size made the task difficult, but she persevered, using levers and trolleys to move the feed where it needed to go. The sky beasts watched curiously, their massive eyes following her every move. Korek arrived, towering above her, arms crossed. "You really think a human can improve them further?" he asked, his voice low and doubtful. "I do," Mara replied calmly. "It's not just about feeding them, it's about giving them what they need to recover. The herd will respond if I get it right." Korek watched silently as Mara set the feed in the troughs. Slowly, the sky beasts approached. They sniffed cautiously at first, then began to eat. Mara observed each one, noting how they reacted. She adjusted portions, nudged weaker animals, and encouraged the timid ones with calm words and gestures. Hours passed, and the results were subtle but clear. The weaker sky beasts moved with more confidence, their eyes brighter, their steps firmer. Mara felt a surge of satisfaction, but she knew this was only the beginning. She needed a lasting solution. By midday, Mara returned to the kitchen to prepare meals for the ranch hands. She chopped, mixed, and stirred with precision, creating dishes that were not only filling but energizing. The workers ate eagerly, their fatigue melting away with every bite. Mara noticed smiles on faces that had been tense for weeks. Even the more skeptical ranch hands seemed impressed. Korek observed from the edge of the kitchen, silently acknowledging her skill. He had underestimated humans. Strength was easy to see. Intelligence and creativity were often overlooked. Mara had both in abundance. After lunch, Mara returned to the corral. The breakthrough she had hoped for began to show. The sky beasts, once sluggish and wary, now moved with purpose. They grazed freely, responded to Korek's commands, and interacted with each other in ways that suggested growing strength. Mara adjusted the feed, experimenting with small changes in texture and flavor. Each adjustment produced noticeable results. Korek walked beside her, towering like a mountain. "I didn't believe it at first," he admitted quietly. "But you're changing things. They're stronger, calmer. You've done what no one else could." Mara smiled, but she remained focused. "I've learned a lot by watching them. They respond to care, patience, and the right balance. That's all." As the day wore on, Mara's small victories became more significant. She discovered which combinations of ingredients made the sky beasts energetic, which encouraged social behavior, and which improved digestion. Her human perspective, once dismissed, proved essential. The giants of the ranch lacked the subtlety required to understand such nuances. Mara's insight filled a gap that no one else had noticed. By late afternoon, Mara knew she had found the formula that would strengthen the herd. She prepared a massive batch, carefully measuring each ingredient. The smell of the feed wafted through the corral, drawing the sky beasts in. Mara watched as they approached eagerly, their massive heads lowering to eat with surprising gentleness. Korek's eyes widened. "They've never responded like this before," he murmured. He looked at Mara, respect evident in his amber gaze. "I underestimated you, human, not just your skill, but your mind." Mara shrugged modestly. "I just pay attention. Sometimes that's enough." The breakthrough was more than just food. It was a demonstration of human ingenuity. Mara had shown that size and strength were not the only measures of value. Observation, patience, and creativity could turn weakness into strength. As evening approached, Mara prepared the final meal of the day for the ranch hands. She added a few extra touches, flavors and textures that lifted spirits and gave energy. The workers ate with enthusiasm, praising the taste and the effect. Mara realized that she was not only helping the sky beasts recover, but also improving the well-being of everyone around her. Korek approached, his massive presence imposing yet calm. "You've done more than feed them," he said. "You've changed them and us. Humans are small, yes, but clever. That cleverness is powerful." Mara looked at him, a faint smile on her face. "We adapt," she said simply. "We watch, we learn, and we try. That's all we do." The night settled over Torian 9, and the ranch was quiet except for the occasional call of a sky beast. Mara stepped outside, looking over the corral. The herd moved confidently, stronger than she had ever seen. Her heart swelled with pride. She had not only succeeded, she had made a difference. Korak joined her, sitting on a nearby rock, his massive frame casting a long shadow. "You've proven something important today," he said. "Strength isn't everything. Cleverness, patience, and care, those matter too, maybe more than we giants want to admit." Mara smiled softly. "I'm glad you see that. Humans may be small, but we have ways to make a difference." Korak nodded, his eyes thoughtful. "And you've shown us that." "I think we could use more humans like you," Mara laughed quietly. "I'm not sure Torian 9 could handle many more of us, but I'll do what I can." The twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Mara watched as the sky beasts settled down for the night, their strength and confidence evident even in rest. She felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Today had been a turning point, not just for the herd, but for how humans were seen on this ranch. Korak stood beside her, silent for a long moment. "You've earned respect," he said finally. "Not because of strength, but because you proved yourself. That's rare," Mara nodded. "I only did what needed to be done. The herd, the ranch hands, they deserved it." Korak smiled faintly, a rare gesture for him. "You've changed things here. That's enough for me." As Mara returned to her small quarters, she reflected on the day. She had faced giants, tamed a struggling herd, and earned the respect of a rancher who valued strength above all else. And yet she had done it all with patience, observation, and creativity, proof that humans, even small and fragile, could make a difference in ways no one expected. She lay down, listening to the distant calls of the sky beasts and the quiet hum of the ranch settling for the night. Her mind was alive with ideas, plans, and strategies for the future. Mara knew challenges were ahead, new problems, rivalries, and unforeseen dangers, but she was ready. She had discovered her own power, one that did not rely on size or strength but on skill, insight, and courage. For the first time, Mara felt that she belonged, not just as a cook, but as a vital part of the ranch and its future. Humans might be small, but cleverness, courage, and determination could change worlds. And Mara was ready to prove it, one day at a time. The morning on Torian 9 began like any other, but Mara could feel a tension in the air. Something was different. The sky beasts moved uneasily in their corrals, stamping their massive hooves and lowering their heads as if sensing an unseen danger. Mara adjusted her apron and stepped outside, scanning the horizon. The twin suns shone brightly, but the beauty of the day did nothing to ease her growing worry. Korak appeared beside her, his massive form towering over her small frame. He frowned, his amber eyes scanning the perimeter. "I don't like it," he said, his voice low. "The herd, something is off. I've never seen them so restless." Mara studied the sky beasts, noting subtle signs of stress, ears twitching, tails flicking, and hesitant movements. "It's like they sense danger," she said, "but I don't see anything." Korak's deep rumble of concern made Mara uneasy. "I've been hearing rumors," he said quietly. "A rival ranching consortium, they're envious of our herd. They've sent scouts to spy on us, maybe worse. They don't want us to succeed." Mara's heart sank. She had faced challenges with the herd, but this was different. This was deliberate, calculated, and dangerous. Torian 9 Frontier was harsh enough without outside interference, but now it seemed that the ranch itself was under threat. "We need to prepare," Korak said. "The herd, the ranch hands, the food, everything must be protected. Can you help?" Mara nodded firmly. "Yes, I can prepare the food to be safe, healthy, and strong, and I can help with strategies for the herd." Korak studied her for a long moment, his massive head tilted slightly. "You've already done the impossible once," he said. "I trust you. Let's get to work." Mara returned to the kitchen first, her mind racing. She knew that any attempt to harm the sky beasts would most likely involve poisoning or tampering with their food supply. She inspected the storage rooms carefully, checking each barrel and sack for signs of contamination. Using a combination of simple tests and careful observation, she ensured that every ingredient was safe. Then she began preparing special meals for the herd. Mara added protective herbs and compounds known to improve immunity and digestion, subtly enhancing the feed without changing the taste. The sky beasts needed strength, focus, and calm, and Mara knew that the right combination of nutrients could give them exactly that. Meanwhile, Korak gathered the ranch hands. His booming voice commanded attention as he outlined defensive strategies. Mara listened, learning how the aliens approached danger. They relied on brute force, intimidation, and sheer size. Mara understood that strength alone would not be enough if the enemy was clever. She began formulating her own plan. By midday, the first signs of trouble appeared. One of the sky beasts in the outer corral hesitated near a feed trough, sniffing warily. Mara approached quietly, kneeling to observe. She noticed a faint, unfamiliar odor in the feed, a subtle chemical trace that humans could detect better than the aliens. Mara realized immediately. Someone had tried to poison the food. Korak arrived, eyes narrowing. "A saboteur," he growled. "They've come closer than I thought." Mara acted quickly. "We need to isolate the affected feed," she said, moving with speed and precision. She removed the tainted food, disposing of it safely and replacing it with her prepared mixture. The sky beasts ate eagerly, calm and strong, unaffected by the threat. Korak's deep voice rumbled in approval. "You're faster than I expected. Clever, too." Mara felt a small surge of pride, but she knew the threat was not over. The rival consortium would try again, likely with more direct measures. She needed to be ready. That afternoon, Mara worked with Korak and the ranch hands to reinforce security. They checked fences, inspected gates, and positioned themselves strategically around the corrals. Mara suggested using scent markers and hidden traps, simple tools but effective in confusing intruders. The aliens followed her lead, impressed by her practical approach. As evening approached, the tension grew. Mara prepared a large batch of feed for the herd, carefully monitored and protected. The sky beasts ate without hesitation, their energy and confidence returning. Mara felt relief, but it was short-lived. Suddenly, a commotion erupted at the far edge of the ranch. Mara ran to the scene, her heart pounding. A group of shadowy figures had entered the outer perimeter, attempting to cut the fences and approach the corrals. The rival consortium had arrived. Korak's massive form appeared beside her, roaring a warning. The intruders froze, startled by his presence. Mara quickly assessed the situation. The humans, or aliens, who had come to sabotage the ranch were strong and armed, but they lacked knowledge of the terrain and the herd. Mara had an advantage. She knew the land, the animals, and the subtle ways to control them. She instructed the ranch hands, guide the herd away from the gates. Stay calm, use the barriers, do not confront them directly yet. The sky beasts responded to her commands, moving as she directed. Mara had discovered that the creatures trusted her voice and gestures. The intruders were forced to retreat, blocked by massive animals and unexpected obstacles. Mara's small size allowed her to move quickly, adjusting the herd and setting up traps the intruders had not anticipated. Korak watched in awe. "I underestimated you again," he admitted. "You're not just a cook, you're a strategist." Mara felt a flicker of satisfaction but kept her focus. She knew the intruders would try again. This was not a single attack. It was a test of endurance, cleverness, and courage. The night fell over Torian 9, cool and quiet except for the distant calls of sky beasts and the occasional rustle of alien predators. Mara worked tirelessly, preparing fortified feed, strengthening fences, and planning contingencies. She realized that the ranch's survival depended not only on brute strength but also on intelligence, foresight, and unity. Korek approached her in the quiet hours, his voice low. "You've done more than I expected," he said. "The herd, the ranch hands, you've protected them in ways I could not. Humans may be small, but your mind, it is dangerous." Mara laughed softly. "I'm glad you think so. I just want everyone to be safe and the herd to thrive, that's all." Korek smiled faintly. "It's enough." More than enough. The next morning, the threat returned, bolder than before. Mara noticed faint tracks near the perimeter, signs of scouting and planning. She quickly coordinated with Korak and the ranch hands, reinforcing vulnerable points and adjusting the herd's movements. When the intruders arrived, they were met not by panic or confusion, but by a calm, organized defense. Mara's plans worked flawlessly. Barriers funneled the intruders into areas where they could not reach the herd, traps slowed their movements, and the skybeasts themselves acted as both shield and deterrent. Mara's clever use of food, animals, and terrain turned the tide. Korak roared as the intruders finally retreated, defeated not by strength alone but by strategy and coordination. Mara watched, exhausted but triumphant. The ranch was safe for now. Korak approached, placing a massive hand on her shoulder. "I have to admit it," he said quietly. "I never thought a human could do this. You've protected the herd and the ranch with nothing but cleverness and determination. That is impressive." Mara smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "Sometimes the smallest actions make the biggest difference," she said. "Strength is not always measured by size." Korak nodded. "You've shown me that. I respect you and I trust you." As the twin suns set, Mara stood overlooking the herd. The skybeasts moved confidently, their strength restored, and the ranch hands were safe. Mara felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had faced real danger, outsmarted enemies, and proven that humans were valuable in ways no one had expected. The night settled over Torian 9, calm and quiet. Mara reflected on the day's events. She had learned that courage, intelligence, and patience could protect life in ways strength alone could not. Humans might be small, but ingenuity and determination were powerful weapons. Korak joined her, his massive shadow beside her. "You've earned more than respect," he said. "You've earned a place here." Mara smiled softly, watching the herd move with ease. "I'm glad to be here," she said. "And I'll keep proving that humans can make a difference, one step at a time." For the first time, she felt truly part of Torian 9, not just as a cook, but as a vital force in the survival of the ranch, the herd, and the people who depended on her. Mara had faced the threat and she had triumphed. The future was uncertain, but she was ready. Humans were small, clever, and determined. And on Torian 9, that was enough to protect the impossible. The sun rose slowly over Torian 9, painting the plains in shades of gold and orange. The ranch was calm, almost peaceful, but Mara knew better. Life on this frontier planet was never simple, and the events of the past days had changed everything. The skybeasts were stronger and healthier, the ranch hands were more confident, and the rival consortium had retreated, at least for now. But Mara felt a sense of hope she hadn't felt since arriving. She had proven herself, and more importantly, she had proven what humans could do. Korak appeared at the kitchen entrance, his massive form outlined by the rising sun. "Morning, Mara," he rumbled, his deep voice carrying easily across the yard. "We've had a quiet night. I think the herd is finally stable." Mara smiled, adjusting her apron. "It looks that way. I've tested the feed and they're strong and energetic. Even the weaker skybeasts are moving confidently now." Korak nodded, his amber eyes thoughtful. "You've done more than feed them. You've strengthened them, protected them, and guided them. Humans, you're remarkable." Mara chuckled softly. "I'm just doing what I know how to do." "Observe, plan, and act." Korak's gaze softened slightly. "I've seen giants underestimate humans before, but you've shown me that strength is not everything. Cleverness, patience, and care, they matter too." Mara felt a warm pride, but she stayed humble. I couldn't have done it without learning from you and the herd, and without trusting the ranch hands. Everyone worked together. Korek grunted. True, but your role, it was crucial. Without your insight, the herd could have suffered more. You've proven humans can make a difference. The day began with Mara preparing the first meal for the ranch hands. She moved through the kitchen with a calm efficiency, chopping, mixing, and seasoning. The kitchen smelled rich and inviting, a comfort to the workers who had faced long days and uncertain nights. Mara carefully balanced each meal to provide energy, focus, and recovery. She understood that humans might be small, but their minds and bodies relied on nutrition as much as strength. As the ranch hands ate, they spoke quietly among themselves, praising Mara's skill. Some had doubted her at first, thinking she was too small or too fragile to make a real impact. Now they respected her. She had not only nourished their bodies but had strengthened their morale. Korek observed silently from the doorway, a small smile crossing his massive face. You've done more than cook, he said softly. You've united us. Mara paused for a moment, reflecting. It was true. Her food had been the bridge between humans and aliens, between size and skill. She had shown that care and creativity could level the playing field in ways no one had anticipated. After the meal, Mara returned to the skybeast corrals. The herd moved confidently, strong and calm. She watched as they interacted with each other, playing gently, testing their strength and grazing peacefully. Mara felt a deep satisfaction. She had helped them recover, but she had also earned their trust. They responded to her presence, their massive heads turning to watch her approach, their eyes bright and aware. Korek joined her again, walking slowly beside the massive animals. You've done more than feed them, he said quietly. You've guided them. Humans may be small, but you've proven your minds can influence giants. Mara smiled. I think it's about understanding them, not dominating them. Strength can control, but understanding can change. Korek nodded thoughtfully. You've changed the way I see humans. You've shown that courage isn't just about fighting and strength isn't just about size. Sometimes, the smallest actions make the biggest difference. As the day wore on, Mara continued to work, preparing meals, observing the herd, and helping the ranch hands. She began planning improvements for the ranch, better storage for feed, safer enclosures, and strategies for protecting the herd from future threats. Her human ingenuity proved invaluable. Korek listened, sometimes skeptical at first, but increasingly impressed by her careful thought and practical solutions. By evening, Mara had prepared a special dinner for Korek and the ranch hands. It was a feast, rich with flavors from both Earth and Taurian 9, designed to celebrate the herd's recovery and the safety of the ranch. The workers gathered, their eyes wide with appreciation. Even the more reserved aliens allowed themselves to smile and laugh. Mara felt a warmth in her chest, pride, yes, but also belonging. Korek took a massive bite, his expression thoughtful. Not bad, he said finally. You've done more than I expected. You've made this ranch stronger, safer, and better. I think humans are rare for a reason. You're clever, determined, and brave. Mara felt a small blush, though she tried to hide it. Thank you, I just want to help. I've learned a lot from you and the herd, too. Korek leaned back, massive arms crossed. You've earned your place here, Mara. Not because of strength, but because you've proven your worth in ways I never imagined. That's enough for me. Mara smiled, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. She had arrived on Taurian 9 as a small, underestimated human, but she was leaving this chapter as someone respected, valued, and trusted. Humans might be small, but they had courage, creativity, and ingenuity, the kind of traits that could influence giants and change worlds. As night fell, Mara stepped outside to watch the twin suns set. The skybeasts moved in calm, confident arcs across the plains, their strength restored and their spirits high. Mara's heart swelled with pride. She had faced danger, protected the herd, and earned the respect of a giant rancher who valued strength above all else. Korek joined her, standing quietly beside her. "You've proven something important," he said softly. "Humans may be small, but your cleverness, patience, and determination, they are powerful. I've never seen anything like it." Mara nodded. "We adapt, we observe, and we try. That's what humans do. We may not be the biggest or the strongest, but we find ways to make a difference." Korek smiled faintly, a rare and subtle gesture. "You've changed things here. The ranch, the herd, and even my mind, I respect that." Mara laughed softly, a sound of quiet joy. "Thank you, I'm glad to be here. And I'll keep proving humans can make a difference, one meal at a time." The twin suns dipped below the horizon, and the plains glowed with soft reds and purples. Mara watched the sky beasts settle down, their massive forms calm and relaxed. She felt a deep sense of belonging. Torian 9 was no longer just a challenge or a job. It was a place where she mattered, where her skills and heart made a real difference. Korek stood beside her, quiet and thoughtful. "You've earned more than respect, Mara. You've earned a place among us." Mara smiled, looking out at the peaceful ranch. "I'm glad to be here," she said, "and I'll keep working to protect this place and the herd. Humans may be small, but we can do great things." The night settled over Torian 9, calm and quiet, except for the distant calls of the sky beasts. Mara reflected on everything that had happened, the challenges, the breakthroughs, and the threats. She realized that humans were special not because of size or strength, but because of heart, courage, and ingenuity. Korek placed a massive hand gently on her shoulder. "You've changed this ranch, Mara, and you've changed how I see humans. I think I've learned something valuable." Mara looked up at him, her small frame dwarfed by his giant form. "And I've learned a lot from you," she said, "about strength, patience, and trust. Together we make a good team." Korek grunted in agreement. "Yes, together. You've proven that humans, even small and underestimated, can shape the future. That's impressive." Mara nodded, her heart full. She had arrived on Torian 9 unsure of her place, doubting her worth. Now she knew humans could matter in ways giants could not always understand. Strength and size were valuable, yes, but courage, cleverness, and care, those were the true measures of power. The night deepened and the ranch settled into quiet peace. Mara lay in her small quarters, listening to the calls of the sky beasts and the soft hum of alien life around her. Her mind wandered to the future, new challenges, new threats, and new opportunities. She knew she would face them with determination, courage, and skill. Humans were small, clever, and determined. And on Torian 9, that was enough to shape the future, protect the impossible, and earn respect among giants. Mara had proven it, and she would continue to prove it, one day at a time. As the twin moons rose over the plains, Mara whispered to herself softly, a quiet promise. "I may be small, but I can make a difference." Korek, standing nearby, simply smiled. "That's enough for me." The ranch, the herd, and Mara's heart were safe. And the future, bright, uncertain, and full of possibilities, was waiting.